What's up, everybody? Welcome to Let's Hash It, episode number 9 for the week of March 24, 2016. I'm your host, Jay Lewis, and joining me today is a man who decided to cost himself a couple $100, if not $1,000, on a new laptop. What's up, Nathan Hodge?
Well, you pretty much said it all right there. I messed up my laptop this morning, so
Yeah,
yeah, that's the thing.
so walk us through this. What exactly did you do to crack the screen on
Oh,
your computer?
yeah, really, you're gonna make me relive this moment?
I, I,
Okay,
I
so I'm making my bed, pulling the sheets across. I'm like stepping on a sheet at the same time as pulling it, lose my balance, and I decided to brace myself on my laptop. And it didn't seem like a big deal at the time. Yeah, I just heard like a small pop, and I just opened up my laptop, and shattered screen. Much problems from here on out. So
oh
gotta look into
man.
getting that replaced.
Well, that sucks, man. I'm sorry for your loss, brother.
These things happen, I suppose.
That they do. Ladies and gentlemen, we got a great show for you today. We're going to get into some top news. There's 7 items on the list, and I figured we'd start with the one that has the internet on fire. And since, Nate, you're our in-house Nintendo expert, let's talk about the Nintendo NX images that are floating around the internet of this controller, and let's get into that first.
Well, I guess a lot of people aren't too pleased with the what we're seeing, whether it's real or not. A lot of people up in arms, so I don't know. I think we should take this with a grain of salt. I mean, obviously, there's been reports that it is indeed fake. I think you said Nintendo has denied these images. Um, yeah, and even if it is the prototype controller or for the NX, these things could change over the time. It may not be the final product, so I mean, honestly, if it, to me, like looking at it, if it is the actual NX controller, to me, it doesn't seem that bad. Like, I don't know if I'm just crazy or something, but if that was the controller, I wouldn't be too surprised, actually.
Yeah, so for those listening, the controller basically looks, if you were to look at like a Ford F-250, so the Ford logo is this oblong oval shape. It basically looks just like that. It's oval, and it has, 2 face buttons that like are literally on the screen, because 100% of the surface of this controller is screen, where there's not the left and the right, what looks like analog sticks. So a lot of people on the internet are not happy with what they're seeing. Like if the PlayStation Vita taught us anything, it's that, we didn't want touch screens. We didn't want none of that garbage. I think a big part of the reason that the Vita was not successful is because it had such a weird controller. Like, I think people, when they do mobile gaming, I think the 3DS has really set the bar for what a quality handheld is like. And the reason that I'm kind of discounting the claims that we're seeing on this controller is Nintendo is the ones that have set the bar for mobile gaming, and for them to deviate from the 3DS, I don't think that that's plausible. What do you think? What do you think about the 3DS, and what kind of influence it'll have on the NX? What's your take on that?
Well, the 3DS is such a beast on its own. I really think that Nintendo will try something new with the NX. This hyper stylized controller might not be too far from what we actually get. So I don't know. I think they have it in them to do something that's crazy, and I can see it working. But if this is the kind of backlash they're gonna get from it, I'm pretty sure that they'll change the design to something more practical, I suppose.
Yeah. There was two images that were floating around. The first one showed off a white aesthetic to the controller, and then the picture that we seen more recently was a black picture of the controller. So, that's another reason to take this, with a grain of salt. And I'm leaning more towards there's no way in hell this thing is actually the NX controller. And I kind of hope I'm right about that. And what's really funny is the internet is taking the image of the controller and took it upon themselves to make it into some obscure things. Like I saw a Hey Arnold reference. So they took the controller and made it Hey Arnold's face and then just, put some hair and a body around it, which was kind of funny. Leave it to the internet to do some creative things. So, I'm hoping that's not the controller. Nintendo needs to learn from its mistakes with the Wii U, and I think they just need to do something more traditional. So that's my take on it. So the second thing I was going to talk about that directly relates with the first one is that MyNintendoNews.com reported that they had an insider, and they didn't want to name the insider, obviously, that claimed that is not the controller. So I mean, again, that even has to be taken with a grain of salt. Nintendo's made claims in the past. When the Wii U was first leaked, they denied that it was the Wii U. When the 3DS XL was announced, they denied those claims as well. So, I mean, there's really no way to tell if any of it's real or not. So, I'm assuming until E3, we're not going to know one way or the other. So, until then, we're just going to have to ride this rumor roller coaster, and I think the rumors are only going to get more and more wacky as time goes by. So we'll see how that pans out. Now, the third thing that I wanted to talk about is last week we talked about VR extensively because we had GDC and we got a reveal and a price and a date window. So pre-orders went available, and looks like PlayStation VR has some good news because on Amazon, 7 minutes after the VR was put on for pre-order, it sold out. So what's your take on that, Nate?
That is pretty encouraging news for Sony and their VR equipment.
Yeah, I mean, everyone said that when VR launched, it was going to be a niche market, and I kind of agreed with that. I mean, I was like, this is only going to be for the hardcore techies, tech junkies out there that just wanted to tinker with it. But I mean, we're seeing the VR sell out in 7 minutes. So I mean, that's pretty promising. And Sony's got to be very pleased with those results. And I've been saying it, and I've been saying that it's going to be the games that really sell this thing. And looking at the launch lineup for the VR, it's nothing to shake a stick at. Now, granted, probably a good 70% of the games that are coming out are more of like a proof of concept type of deal. Nothing that's going to be like, get that AAA treatment. But, if you have one or two decent AAA games that come out for the thing, I think that's going to help it sell. And, the fact that it sold out so quickly on the pre-orders, that's good news. I meant to check before we started to see if they've since got a new batch in there on Amazon. I don't think they have. When we get on to the next topic, I'll look that up. Did you want to hit anything else on that, or are you good?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's just, it's encouraging to see that so many early adopters are picking it up, and it shows real promise for not only the future of VR, but, these people will show their friends, and it'll just spread word of mouth. So I'm actually kind of surprised. I didn't think it would do so well at launch, but it really shows that people are ready for a new experience. So pretty cool and exciting.
Yeah. One thing I was going to add to that is Shuhei Yoshida, which for those of you who don't know is like the poster boy of PlayStation. He's the CEO, and he's a very tongue-in-cheek kind of guy, and he's been, saying or he's been shooting out tweets. Like I think it was yesterday that I shot out a tweet saying that, hey, guess what display that I'm playing Dark Souls 3 on? So I think he's referencing the PlayStation VR there. So he was probably playing it with the VR. So, the fact that he's playing Dark Souls 3 on a VR is kind of wicked. So, speaking of Dark Souls 3, GameSpot had an hour-long stream of Dark Souls 3 the other day, and they showed off the first hour of the game, and I'm ready to talk about my impressions on it. I wanted to sit for a while and think about what I was looking at, and basically it looks like more of Bloodborne, right? So the aesthetic, it's almost like it looked like it belonged right in the world of Bloodborne. Like they didn't deviate from any kind of visual aspects whatsoever. Like I'm sure that it starts changing up the locales as you go further, and but the first enemy that he tackled in the game was like this kind of ice monster looking thing, and it looked exactly like something that you would have battled in Bloodborne. The more I saw of it, like the more I'm like, wow, this looks exactly like Bloodborne, and what's your thoughts on that, Nate?
That sounds pretty cool. I know it's made by the same guys who did Bloodborne, and I was a huge fan of that game, so any similarities to that has got me interested.
Yeah, the only thing I was kind of hoping for, I think, is that Dark Souls 3 would look, vastly different than Bloodborne, right? Because I want Bloodborne to look like Bloodborne, and I want Dark Souls to look like Dark Souls, like if that makes any sense. Like I just feel the worlds need to kind of deviate from each other so it doesn't feel like you're in the same world, because now that we're going to have, assuming that we're gonna have a sequel to Bloodborne, I think it's pretty safe to assume, because I think that game ended up selling somewhere in the ballpark of like 8 million copies or something like that, which ain't bad. But I kind of wish they would separate the two visually, and maybe moving forward they will. But I mean, Bloodborne was one of my favorite games of all time. I mean, it's way up there. I mean, that game kicks your ass and it's unapologetic. And I think that's what I liked about it. And this looks to be more of that. That being said, I don't feel like I'm ready to get back in that world yet. By the time you reach Endgame and Bloodborne, it's kind of like, it's like a relief, right? Do you agree with that?
Yes, yes, I do.
It's like, okay, I banged my head up against the wall for 60, 70, 80 hours now, and it's on some games that's okay. It's kind of like you progress through the game and the game gets easier. But Bloodborne, never once do you encounter an enemy and it's like, oh, that was pretty easy. I think there might have been one or two bosses in that entire game that was, pretty easy. But yeah, I think I'm going to give it a while before I get on Dark Souls 3. I think I'll eventually play it, but it's not going to be anytime soon. I mean, I need a palate cleanser from Bloodborne, even though Bloodborne, I haven't played that for a couple months, it's still fresh in my head. So you going to wait on that one yourself?
Yeah, I probably will. I got enough punishment this year so far.
Yeah, definitely. The fifth thing that I want to talk about is a little article that Polygon wrote, saying that the Nintendo Wii U production was going to cease at the end of this year. So, what is your take on that?
Well, I was a little bit surprised to hear that, and then yesterday I read another article that said that Nintendo has been denying the reports that it's halting production. From what I can gather, apparently what happened was a Japanese magazine had published that they were halting production, and then Nintendo has just turned around and denied, saying that was false reporting. Um, uh, the newspaper that published the article is a fairly high respected newspaper in Japan. So if it was a mistake on their part, it was a rare mistake. And if it is true and Nintendo is denying these reports again, I'd be really surprised because normally video game companies will continue producing their consoles even into the lifespan of the next console. So I would really be surprised if they were actually halting Wii U production right now. I don't think that that's the case.
All right, well, then let me play devil's advocate here and refer back to the podcast we did around December. Actually, no, I'm sorry, January, coming out of the holiday season where, you couldn't find a Wii U on the shelf over in Japan, and people started speculating because it was, due to the fact that, Nintendo was already stopping production, as soon as January. So, what's your take on that? Like to me, that should, that makes this story even more relevant. The fact that, already in January, they were not keeping up with demand, and it's not even like it was that high of a demand.
Well, and that was probably just because, they didn't have a strong forecast for sales and they probably underestimated, their IPs that are coming out here at the end of the Wii U cycle. I mean, Smash Brothers is going as strong as ever with every new DLC character we get. I'm sure that picks up a few more consumers. And we also have the new Star Fox game coming out this year. And the new Zelda, maybe, we don't know. But so there is some incentive for a lot of the Japanese market to get on board with the Wii U. And it in my mind, it was probably just one of those situations where they really didn't expect to sell as much as they did, even though it wasn't that much in comparison to what we're seeing on the PS4 sales. But I think they were just a little unprepared over the holiday seasons as well.
So then, your opinion is you think that it is still in production, and you think that the Wii U is still okay.
Yes.
That's your
I don't
opinion.
know if it's okay, but it's still in production, is my opinion.
Okay, and my opinion is that the Wii U is no longer in production. Uh, I just think that the last couple Nintendo Directs that we've seen, we haven't, seen any games in the pipeline for the console. Which, if we're not seeing anything, unless they are holding it all for E3, and then all of a sudden we see all these Wii U games being announced, which I highly doubt. Then I think these reports are in fact true, and Nintendo just has to do what Nintendo's gonna do and cover their ass for the time being. So, gonna be interesting to see how that story plays out, and we'll see this June, that's for sure. The next thing that I wanted to talk about, and it's a little bit of a bummer, but Sony's closing Evolution Studios, and if you don't know who they are the company, or developers rather, that created Drive Club, which was a racing game for the PlayStation 4, exclusive to the console. Had a very, very rocky launch. When the game originally launched, the servers weren't working, and then they had a free version for PlayStation Plus subscribers that, man, I can't tell you how long it took them to roll that out. It was months. But I mean, once they finally got the game in working order, it was a solid racer. I mean, beautiful, beautiful game. But this story doesn't surprise you one bit. I mean, they took way too long to develop that game, and then all the delays the game saw, and then they still didn't get all their stuff in order for the launch. So this was kind of a no-brainer for me. So what is your take on that?
Yeah, I'm not very surprised at all. I have actually enjoyed my time with Drive Club. I played it while it was free on PlayStation Plus, and it was a pretty decent game. But it is the obvious choice on Sony's part to break up the studio. I mean, they reported that a lot of these guys will be reorganized within Sony, so Probably not a lot of them will be out of work, and more talented ones will probably go on to maybe even form their own studios. But when you have a group that didn't coalesce and didn't make a great game, sometimes it is better that you just break those people up and sort them out and get them into areas where they can be much more productive. So, I mean, nothing but good could come of this, I think.
Right. A lot of people are sad that are into Drive Club because looks like they will not be seeing a sequel. So, I mean, you never know. I mean, another studio could pick it up and develop a sequel. Like I said, it was a solid racer. But granted, I don't know if Sony needs another racer. They have the Gran Turismo racer, which is, pretty much the pinnacle for what a good racer should be, and it's Sony's answer to Microsoft's Forza. So I mean, I don't really think they needed another racer. And we've talked about it in the past how racers seem to be sort of a dying, what's the word I'm looking for here, genre. Yeah, like a dying genre. But hey, I could be wrong. They're still making Need for Speeds and Forza, and there is an audience. I just think it's a dying audience. But something that we talked about, we did an episode 8 that never made it onto the site. I don't know what happened. It's forever lost in the interwebs somewhere, where we talked about Lionhead Studios closing their doors. So here we see two top tier, studios. This was a major first party studio for Sony, right? Their first party, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't really consider them a major studio. I mean, this was a part of their European division.
Yeah, European.
Uh,
That's what it is. Yep.
Now, Lionhead Studios was, a European division from Microsoft. So, uh, I'm not saying it's probably just a coincidence. I'm not saying that that has anything to do with the European game developer market, but it is kind of a strange coincidence, I think.
Yeah, very much so. And again, all of us over at Extremely Decent Games, we hope these people land on their feet. A developer's lifestyle is not a very glorious one. They put their heart and souls into these games. They work crazy hours. They don't see their wife and kids. It's go 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 until your game, makes it to out to the wild, and then once that happens, you better hope that you got something in the pipeline, or you better hope that you're with somebody like Naughty Dog that is going to be around, and they're going to go from one project to the next. So we hope everybody lands on their feet, that is for sure. We do appreciate your hard work that went into Drive Club. I know we both played the free version, and I know you highly enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did. Indeed.
Yeah, and what little I did play, I mean, I really enjoyed it myself too. I thought the visuals, it's one of the best looking PlayStation 4 games to this day. So I mean, hearts go out to them, and good luck. The last thing I want to talk about, and this is just a really brief little hit. The Division saw a patch this week, first major patch, and it's the 1.0.2 patch. And basically, this is the patch that the Division players have been waiting for. It fixed a lot of stability issues. People were falling through the map. Certain perks weren't working correctly. It took care of some weapon balancing issues. It took care of some issues when entering the dark zone, and weird gun reloading animations would cause your bullets to do no damage. And just overall, it's just the game really needed this patch, and an already good good game is going to turn into a great game after it. In fact, I got Division on in the background right now. I can't wait to check out this patch more after we're done with this podcast. But from what I'm hearing, people are highly enjoying the game now that it's been patched. So for the full list of patch notes, just go over to Ubisoft.com. Look for the Division. It has all the patch notes there for you. Now, I wanted to get into my topic, but let me just go ahead and let you get yours going real quick. So, what's your topic this week, Nate?
Okay, my topic is kind of comes out of GDC. It was a small thing that was presented that, was mostly overshadowed by the whole VR thing. But I wanted to bring it up right now. They had a Miami University professor talk about the aging game market and how this is going to be a tappable resource here in the near future because, we're getting older, Jay. We're in our early 30s now, and it won't be too long before we're in our 40s and 50s. And I don't know about you, but I think I will still be playing video games by then. What do you think?
I think I'm gonna be playing video games when I'm in diapers.
So yeah, I think we can safely consider that, we'll probably play video games for the rest of our lives. Now, there's a problem with this because the video game market is aging. Developers and companies aren't really targeting older gamers. The majority of gamers are in the younger audience, so right now it still makes sense to them to really focus on that demographic. But what we're going to see is as we get older as gamers, it's going to be harder for us to keep up with these newer games. Like our Twitch reflexes aren't going to be as great. We're not going to be able to hop on and instantly pick up new interfaces. It'll be a tough ride for, older gamers going forward. So what the professor was kind of putting forward was that the company should look forward and take advantage of this aging game market because in not too long there'll be a stable market for 50 plus year old gamers, and we really need to find like a genre of games and start catering to these gamers because it will be a great untapped market for the industry, but it could provide a much needed variety in video games. So, I mean, what kind of, like, let's say that you're getting on in years, Jay, and you just don't have the reflexes for Twitch-based shooters. Like, you just can't get on and hang with the newer generation, and it's gotten to be too frustrating. Is there any other type of genre of games that you could think of that might lend well to that experience? Like, what kind of games do you think you might find yourself playing as you get on in years?
Um, probably games that have that solo experience, like Uncharted's or Tomb Raiders. I think they're always gonna be, a market for those types of games. Anything with just that solo player experience, really, man. Like adventure games, I guess is the best way to keep saying it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think adventure games will probably be the best route to go. Also, I think, maybe turn-based RPGs can make a comeback. Any sort of game that gives you time to think about the moves that you're going to make, kind of like a game of chess. Something that's not always based on how fast you can react, but how good you can make decisions. I think will be a good route to go for the future of gaming. So, uh, yeah, I think that's something that we need to look out for and encourage the company to take a look at. There's already, older gamers out there now who are hanging with us and trying to keep up, and we should just, and it's not so much about catering to an older market as it is having a wide variety of games to play. Because we see the company just kind of, or the big name companies just kind of focusing on the younger generation and these fast-paced games, which is cool. They can be out there, but take a chance on the older generation of gamings and try something new, I think is a
Yeah,
good lesson to take away from this.
yeah, and like I wanted to say, like, our age, you brought it up before, we're in our mid 30s. We kind of have been around gaming since gaming has been gaming. You know what I mean? We've been around since the Atari days, and we have had to evolve with video games. You know, we used to play Pong, where all you had to do is move a little, platform around and hit a ball from one side to the other. And if we were to play games of today back in that era, we would suck at them. Like, there's no doubt about it. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is that I think that even though we will get older, I think that because we'll have such a background, in video games, I think that we'll just evolve and adapt. Yeah, we're going to get older and our twitch reflexes aren't going to be there, but, you never know either, because your brain wires itself a certain way, and if you just keep playing those twitchy games 20, 30, 40, 50 years, you just kind of have it. It's like smoking a cigarette or drinking a cup of coffee. Like, your brain knows how to handle those things, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a very good point. Because we are kind of the experimental generation. We'll see going forward how well we hang on to our video gaming prowess as we age.
Yeah, that's a really good topic though, and it's something that I never really thought about. Like, when I'm 60, what are my gaming habits going to be? You know what I mean? Because if we're already starting to get into things like VR, then what is the road look like 30 years later? You know what I mean? Like, that's something to really think about. I hope we still have controllers in our hand. I'm gonna say that first and foremost. Like, I don't want to fully be in a world where I'm using my hands in some kind of obscure manner to make my character do a certain thing on screen. Especially if I'm 60, all I'm gonna want to do is sit back in my recliner and just sit there, and I don't mind having VR on my attached to my head, but give me a controller by all means. So I can't wait to see. This is going to be interesting. We'll be doing the podcast 30 years later, look back on this episode and be like, wow, you know, my how
Didn't
gaming
see
has
that
changed.
coming.
Yeah, exactly. uh, Good topic though, Nate. Now my topic that I want to get into this week is how we feel about a PlayStation 4.5, because there's been rumors going around this week. There's been a lot of rumors this week, by the way, but I mean, that's just the nature of the beast that is gaming. But first, we got an article earlier this week from Kotaku reporting a PlayStation capable of high-end 4K resolution games for the PlayStation. A not a sequel, but a half generation gap, basically. So that's why they're calling it the PlayStation 4.5. And then a couple days ago, we had Eurogamer. They posted a report of their own, which basically claimed that Kotaku's article was unrealistic. That they said it is impossible to cram the equivalent of today's top-end PCs into a console-sized mass-marketed box. Basically stating that the PlayStation 4, console as it stands right now, there's just no room inside of it to pump out those kinds of, ultra 4K settings, which, I mean, I had to completely, agree with them on that. There's no way we're going to reach that ultra 4K setting that these high-end PCs are capable of. We just don't have the graphics cards inside of it and the processing power like a PC does. But I more or less wanted to talk about how we feel about a 4.5. So what's your thoughts on it?
Well, it does make sense that they would try this. And it's only because technology moves so fast. Every 2 years, it almost doubles itself. So, and there's so much progress that happens so quickly. Uh, I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't try putting out a slightly updated model with the next incarnation. Because generally we'll see multiple versions of consoles anyway throughout their lifetimes. They'll get smaller, slicker, you know, cheaper too. So we'll see. I mean, it would work well for us. I mean, I could definitely use a console with more storage capacity. I'll bet that I wouldn't like having to buy another console, but I need one. So, uh, I don't know, man. It's something I'm really torn about. Like, I can see a lot of positives with it, but I can also see a lot of negatives coming about because of it.
Do you think that, it would affect the price at all? Would it be more than a traditional retail PlayStation 4? And if so, what do you think the price point would hover around?
I don't think it would be. I think that they would try to keep it at the same price point because that's, well, now that I start thinking about it, they may, charge extra. Like, what if they did do that? What if they charged us an extra $100 for a higher end PlayStation 4 with more capabilities? That would be something very strange to see happen, and I hope they don't do that because that seems like they would almost be gouging their customer base. But I would personally think that they would try to keep it around the original price point of the PlayStation 4. And that way, it would keep consumers from getting too upset over the fact that they would have to buy another PlayStation 4 to keep up with the current state of gaming.
Yeah, because I mean, here we are already going into October, having to worry about buying PlayStation VR and buying a Nintendo NX. So it's like our budgets for gaming. We're already starting to look at how we're going to be nickel and diming to get all these new consoles and virtual reality home consoles. Like, we already got all that in the pipeline, and then it's like now we're looking at the Xbox One getting an updated version and the PlayStation 4 getting an updated version. So these are new costs that we're going to have to start worrying about. And it's one of those things, like, when you're a gamer, you like to be on the cusp of what's new, and you want the technology to be pushed, but it's starting to get pushed so quickly and improved upon so quickly. Usually we get these 7-year generational gaps, so it's like all we have to do is worry about purchasing the game itself. And then sometimes you get these one-off games like Rock Band or something where you have to buy peripherals, and then you're only looking at a couple $100 versus four or $500. So I'm really torn. I definitely don't have it in my budget to buy a 4K PlayStation, but do I want it? Yeah. Am I gonna find a way to get it? Yeah. Like, that's where I stand on it, and it sucks. You know what I mean? It's first world problem, yes, but this is what we do. We devote our lives to gaming, so I had my wallet around here somewhere. I was just gonna start dumping out all my money because that's basically the metaphor for what's going on. Another thing that I did see in the article is that if we did have a PlayStation 4.5, it would presumably make current PlayStation 4 games more capable of reaching that highly sought after 1080p 60 frames a second. Because in my opinion, like what they need to do right now is they need to worry about this frames that they keep running it, like the frame issue. When Fallout 4 first came out, we were seeing these frame rate dips, and it does blow the immersion, and rather than pumping out higher resolution, it's like, why don't you worry about locking in that 30 frames a second or that 60 frames a second? Like, I don't like playing games where I dip into 15 frames a second and I feel like my character's robotic, and to me that's what they should worry about first and foremost, not giving me those PC specs. If I wanted PC specs, I'd get a PC. You know what I mean? Do you agree with that?
Right, yeah, most definitely.
I mean, games already look so damn good. Now just make them run as good as they look, you know?
Exactly. I am 100% with you on that one.
Yeah, and what do you think about Kotoku's kind of, in my opinion, crazy article stating that it's going to have ultra 4K settings like the PC? Do you think that that's kind of nonsense as well?
Uh, it might seem like nonsense now, but it could very well be the future.
Because I mean, PCs that can run these games, you know, at that high of a setting, I mean, those PCs cost upward of $2,000. So how do you get a PlayStation 4 to run those kinds of graphics and make it cost friendly? You know?
Yeah, I mean, right now it doesn't seem to be that way, but you never know. Like, there could be some huge breakthrough, and in the next couple of years, we'll be talking about 4K PlayStation 4s. So,
Right. So to close out this topic, where do you stand on the PlayStation 4.5? Let's do it like this. You want to buy it, you respect it, but you're not going to buy it, or you're not interested at all.
it's more like I want to buy it, I think.
You want to buy it. Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. Like, if I'm, you know, physically able to do it, I think that if it were a thing, then I definitely find a way to make it happen. So looks like we both agree on that one. So anything else you have for the show this week, Nate?
I just wanted to give a little shout out to Highlight Reel and their 200th episode, and I wanted to thank them personally for answering my question on their episode. So if you have not, go out and check out Highlight Reel. It's a great America's Funniest Home Videos of video games, and they're really great about interacting with their audience. So please go check them out.
Right, that was cool. You got your question right on the show, which was gnarly. They definitely.
But outside about that, that's about it, I think.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? Oh, I was just gonna let everyone know that, you know, Nate and myself, we have a lot of projects in the works that, you know, we want to keep a secret right now and reveal them as it happens. Like, you know, our buyer's guide for April, we have a reveal that we're going to be doing there. There is some meetups that are going to be happening in Orlando that we're going to try our best to cover. You know, we just got so many projects that we're working on, and we want to continue to make the show better. This week, man, we had one heck of a week. Our podcast got the most views it's ever got, double than any other podcast we've ever done. So obviously we seem to be doing something right, Nate. People seem to be enjoying the content. We picked up quite a few subs this week, so that's really good. Like, everything is going really well for us, and we are so thankful and we're so humbled by everyone's support. You know, the new subs we picked up this week, thank you for subbing. The ones that have been around the whole time, thank you for your continued support. We're going to keep working hard for you guys, and we're going to keep doing this. We love what we do. We love video games, and we're just going to keep getting better every week. So I just want to say that. And also, again, we're on SoundCloud, so if you like the audio-only version, go see us over there on SoundCloud.com. Look for Jay Lewis, that's Jay. Check us out on our Facebook group. We're really active over on Facebook. We ask the audience questions over there, and if they want us to hash out the questions on the podcast, you know, if you have a question, go over to facebook.com/groups, look for Extremely Decent Games, join up over there, ask your question, and, you know, while we are a small community, we're going to try to get to every question that we receive. So, you know, definitely go over there and do that. That being said, I'm ready to close the show out. So thanks for joining us for episode number 9 of Let's Hash It. I'm your host, Jay Lewis, and Nathan was your co-host. So thanks for joining, guys, and have an extremely decent week.